horizon is no longer empty. On a single morning in August 2025, the waters around the Philippines carry 50 foreign warships, American destroyers, Japanese and Australian frigates, French and British task groups, even Canadian and Indian ships passing through. Why here? Why now? Because the South China Sea is the world's heartbeat. Every year, $3 trillion in trade passes through these lanes. Beneath them lie 11 billion barrels of oil and 190 trillion cubic feet of gas. Above them swim the richest fishing grounds on Earth. Block it once, and the global economy convulses within hours. For Filipino fishermen pushed off Scarborough Shoal, for sailors blasted by water cannons near 2nd Thomas Shoal, this is not strategy. This is food on the table, fuel in the tank, school fees unpaid. So why are fleets from half the planet converging here? What do they see that the rest of us do not? Every week, incidents multiply. Lasers, rammings, shadowing at sea. One wrong turn and stock markets, insurance rates, and lives plunge. This is the untold story of the 5 forces pulling the world's navies to the Philippines, and how a chain of islands became the fulcrum of Indo-Pacific peace, or war. Start with a map, because a map explains why the Philippines is suddenly the most crowded stretch of ocean on Earth. Look north, to the Bashi Channel and the Luzon Strait. This narrow corridor is Taiwan's southern gate. Every ship that leaves Taiwan's ports, every oil tanker that fuels its economy, every container of semiconductors that powers the global tech supply chain, sooner or later, it threads through these waters. And who sits on the edges of this choke point? The Philippines. Now look south and west. The same waters connect to the South China Sea, where nearly $3 trillion in trade moves each year. Tankers from the Middle East, bulk carriers from Africa, container ships bound for Japan, Korea, and the United States. Almost 1/3 of the world's maritime trade passes right here. And beneath the waves, 11 billion barrels of oil, 190 trillion cubic feet of gas, plus fishing grounds that deliver nearly 12% of the world's catch. Lose these waters, and nations lose not only trade, but food and energy. The law already spoke. In 2016, the Hague Tribunal ruled China's 9-dash line had no legal basis. By international law, reefs like Mischief and shoals like 2nd Thomas sit inside the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. Yet maps and rulings mean nothing if ships and planes can't enforce them. That is why navies measure their power not only in missiles, but in how close they can sail to the Bashi Channel without being blocked. Control these straits and you influence Taiwan's lifelines and the entire first island chain that cages China's navy. For the world, this is strategy. For the Philippines, this is geography. It cannot be moved. A single container of semiconductors leaving Taiwan likely passes under the gaze of the Batanes Islands, and with it, the fate of the global economy. If maps and laws explain the where, the question is urgent. What exactly changed to make the now so explosive? The map showed why the Philippines mattered, but the flashpoints showed why it could no longer wait. For years, the danger grew slowly. China poured sand onto reefs, raised islands from the sea, and built what it called civilian outposts. By 2022, the truth was clear. At least 3 reefs, Fiery Cross, Subi, and Mischief, were fully militarized. They had runways, hangars, surface-to-air missiles, radars, and hardened shelters. Artificial islands had become unsinkable fortresses. And then the pressure exploded. By late 2024, the Philippines counted an average of 286 Chinese vessels every single day, operating inside its claimed waters. Coast Guard cutters, maritime militia swarms, fishing fleets with steel hulls and military radios. The collisions were not accidents. At Scarborough Shoal, water cannons shattered windows of Filipino boats. At 2nd Thomas Shoal, rammings tore into wooden outriggers. Filipino sailors staggered back injured. Fishermen returned home with nothing but broken boats. For Beijing, this was meant as intimidation. For Manila, it became a trigger. Instead of retreating, the Philippines called for help. And the world listened. Because here, the conflict was not Navy versus Navy. It was local fishermen in small boats versus industrialized Coast Guard and militia fleets. It was one country's lifeline crushed by the machinery of a superpower. But coercion has consequences. Each blast of a water cannon, each boarding incident, each photo of bruised Filipino crew did not frighten Manila. It hardened its will. It proved that standing alone was no longer possible. And so the question shifted. Who would answer Manila's call? And how fast would they arrive? For years, the Philippines stood alone. But once the flashpoints grew violent, the treaties came alive. The promise had been written decades earlier. In 1951, the Mutual Defense Treaty with the United States said, if Philippine forces or vessels were attacked anywhere in the South China Sea, America would defend them. For a long time, those words felt like paper. Now they became steel. By 2023, the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement expanded American access from 5 sites to 9. Bases at Lalo, Camilo Osayas, Melchor de la Cruz, and Balabac became hardwired nodes. Hangars filled with U.S. aircraft, depots stocked with fuel and missiles. Each site cut response time from days to hours. And then came the drills. Balikatan 2023 to 2025 grew into one of the largest exercises in Philippine history. Over 17,000 troops trained side by side. Live fire events sank decommissioned ships. Allied fleets sailed in combined patrols through the very shoals where Chinese cutters swarmed. The message was clear. An attack on Manila was now a risk of war with Washington. And it wasn't just theory. After a violent collision near Scarborough Shoal, 2 U.S. warships arrived within days. They didn't fire. They didn't need to. Their presence alone was a shield and a warning. For Beijing, every new access point became a countdown clock. Every extra drill cut the window to act without consequences. The more nodes Manila opened, the shorter the fuse became. The Philippines had called. America had answered. And now the horizon was changing again. Because America was not the only ally. The question was urgent. Who else would sail in next? The Philippines had America back on its shores. But soon, it was not just one ally. It was a coalition at sea. First came Japan. For decades, its constitution kept it cautious. But by 2025, the shift was undeniable. On September 11th, 2025, the Japan-Philippines Reciprocal Access Agreement entered into force. For the first time in history, Japanese troops and ships could operate routinely from Philippine soil. What once was unthinkable, Tokyo guarding Manila, was now normal, and reports spoke of more. Plans surfaced of a transfer, up to 6 Abukuma-class escorts to the Philippine Navy. If realized, this would not just be symbolic. It would be a capability jump, giving Manila hulls it never dreamed of commanding. Then came Australia. Long before others, Canberra's patrols shadowed Chinese vessels. By 2024 to 2025, Australian frigates and P-8 patrol aircraft became familiar sights in Philippine waters. Each pass told Beijing, Manila was not alone. And then Europe returned. The UK's carrier groups cut across the Pacific. French frigates sailed through disputed waters. Even Germany and Canada made their presence routine. Each foreign flag added weight. Each hull stretched China's attention thinner. For a Filipino crew threading waves near Scarborough, the sight of foreign steel on the horizon was not abstract geopolitics. It was breathing space. It was a reminder that if water cannons fired again, cameras and allies would already be watching. The coalition grew larger, the seas more crowded, and Beijing's margin for intimidation shrank by the week. But presence alone was not enough. Allies had to bring more than flags. They had to bring hardware, weapons that made deterrence real. So the question sharpened. What systems turned this coalition into a wall China could not push through? For decades, the Philippine military was trained to fight insurgents in the jungle. But by 2024 to 2025, the doctrine flipped. The new mission was clear. Deny the sea. Every island, every channel, every strait. It was called the Comprehensive Archipelagic Defense Concept. And it meant one thing: turning the Philippines into a porcupine. Not a weak target, but a nation bristling with quills. The first quills came from India. In 2024, the Philippines received its first BrahMos coastal batteries. By 2025, a second batch stood ready. Each missile screamed at 3,000 kilometers per hour, able to sink warships before they could even see the coast. For the first time in history, Filipino soldiers had the reach to hit back at sea. The second quills came from America. During Balikatan 2025, U.S. Marines deployed NMESIS launchers with naval strike missiles into the Luzon Strait. The message was unmistakable. Any ship trying to break through Taiwan's southern gate would face missiles from both shores. And then came the forward edge. At Mahatao, Batanes, the Philippines, stood up its first permanent forward base. Just 185 kilometers from Taiwan, the smallest island now carried the heaviest burden. Radars scanned the strait. Missiles watched every corridor. Every beach was a bunker. Every channel was a kill zone. Together, these layers formed a chain. Brahmos on the coasts, Mises in the straits, forward bases on the islands. Each link added risk. Each risk raised the price of aggression. The porcupine had grown its quills, and every Chinese admiral now faced the same thought. A breakout or blockade might not just fail, it might bleed the fleet dry. But if the Philippines is the doorstop, then the question is urgent. What force is pushing hardest on the door? Every map tells the same story. If China ever moves on Taiwan, its ships must pass one bottleneck: the Bashi Channel, a narrow stretch of sea pressed between Taiwan's southern tip and the Philippines' northern edge. For decades, it was a gap. Today, it is a wall. American EDCA sites in northern Luzon preposition fuel, ammo, and logistics. Japanese sensors now track movements from as far as Okinawa, and Filipino outposts in Batanes feed real-time data into the net. Together, they paint a 24/7 picture of every ship, every sub, every plane threading that channel. The firepower is matched by presence. Since 2024, quad-style patrols, US, Japan, Australia, and the Philippines have become routine. By 2025, they are almost constant. Fishermen who once saw only gray hulls from China now see Allied flags pacing the lanes. And this is where you come in. If you value number first, map-driven, verified analysis, without hype, without noise, hit subscribe now. It keeps this reporting independent. It tells the algorithm this work matters. And it makes sure you never miss the updates that shape tomorrow's headlines. Because here's the truth. A theater with 50 ships in motion is not stable. One misread radar return, one helm order given too late, and escalation is minutes away. The Bashi Channel is no longer just geography. It is the tripwire of the Indo-Pacific. But that raises the next question. What turned this fight from a regional feud into a global test case for how power will be contested in the 21st century? In 2016, an international tribunal handed Manila a victory. It ruled that China's 9-dash line had no legal basis. It declared that Reed Bank was within Philippine rights and that blocking Scarborough's fissures was unlawful. But rulings on paper meet resistance on water. China kept patrols steady. Militia swarms pressed nets aside. Water cannons fired. And the rulebook looked fragile. That is why every Allied patrol matters. When a US destroyer sails through or a Japanese frigate cuts across a shoal, they are not just moving steel. They are saying, these waters are international. Each pass is a line under UNCLOS, written not in ink, but in wake. For a Filipino fisherman, that phrase, rule of law, is not abstract. It is the difference between nets full or empty, between returning home or not at all. And here's the tension. If the rules collapse here, they collapse everywhere. In Hormuz, in Malacca, even in the Arctic. So why is presence rising now? What immediate spark has stirred an even greater surge of warships into these waters? The sea did not calm after the rulings. It boiled harder. Through 2024 and into 2025, every month brought a clash. Collisions dented hulls, lasers burned eyes, water cannons battered decks. What was meant to intimidate only multiplied resolve. By mid-2025, the horizon itself had changed. On many days, nearly 50 foreign warships cut across Philippine waters. US destroyers trailed resupply runs. Japanese frigates sailed side by side. Australian patrol planes circled overhead. And European ships, British, French, German, made their presence routine. Even as Philippine crews limped through damage, they kept running resupply lines. Every mission completed was a message. We are still here. Every Allied shadow said, you will not face this alone. What began as coercion aimed to isolate Manila, but instead, it drew half the planet into the same waters. The crisis became multilateral, and the deterrent became heavier. And now, with fleets stacked and weapons readied, the board is set. The only question left is, what truth does this convergence reveal about the future? The world's fleets are not here to start a war. They are here to stop one before it begins. Every destroyer, every frigate, Every patrol raises the cost of aggression today, so that tomorrow's clash never arrives. This moment is not about choosing sides. It is about choosing rules. Keep this sea open now or watch the rulebook collapse in Hormuz, Malacca, even the Arctic. And in that choice, the Philippines is no longer small. For the Philippines, every calm sunrise is earned by sailors braving the shoals and by partners standing watch just beyond the horizon. This crisis proves something vital. Presence, partnerships, and principles still matter, but only when backed by hard capability and real will. If you want more evidence-driven, bias-checked breakdowns like this, subscribe, share this episode, and turn on alerts so you never miss the next update from the Indo-Pacific's front line. Now tell me, what single move, new bases, more missiles, or constant patrols most strengthens deterrence? I'll feature the sharpest answers in our next episode.